19 House progressives, including Jamal Bowman and Ilhan Omar, saying in part, quote, the United States has a proud commitment to global moral leadership in the defense of human rights. That commitment should have included refusing to transfer cluster munitions that, by design, hold a serious risk of severe harm to civilians. Joining me now, Ben Rhodes, former deputy advisor to President Obama, and New York Times diplomatic correspondent Michael Crowley. So, Ben, you're well practiced in this space. Why do you think this is happening now, and what do you see as the diplomatic pitfalls here for the Biden administration? I think it seems like the fact that the civilians who'd be put at risk here are Ukrainian civilians has to be a mitigating factor in giving these weapons to Ukraine, no?
Yeah, well, I think this is happening now for a couple of reasons. First, there are clearly shortages of ammunition, and this is a way to make that whole for a period of time. And we've seen this Ukrainian counteroffensive, stalled a bit. And I think the Biden administration wants to do everything they can to help the Ukrainians make some advances on the battlefield. However, I think there are very real risks, Garrett. And for me, this is shaped in part by the fact that I worked on this issue a lot in government. I went to Laos, which has an extraordinary amount of unexploded cluster munitions from the 70s, where there are children who are still losing limbs because they're picking up unexploded cluster munitions. This is a real issue that a lot of countries have spent decades trying to fortify a norm against the deployment of these weapons. And so I think the cost for the United States is both that rupture with some of our allies that don't provide these kinds of munitions, but also the conflict is one of also holding the moral high ground. And the United States and Ukraine clearly have had that throughout this conflict. This enters into a gray area. Obviously, Ukraine is still facing aggression. Obviously, as President Biden said, they need whatever they can to fight off a Russian attack. But, this was a tough call, and I think it's appropriate that there continue to be scrutiny, that crossing a norm like this and kind of reversing the direction of U.S. policy away from these munitions, there should be pushback to that so that it doesn't become a norm again to be using these kinds of things in battle.
Ben, a quick follow-up on this. Is this not also kind of a wake-up call for the West that we're 500-plus days into this war and we're still having problems supplying the conventional ammunition that Ukraine needs? I mean, the whole NATO infrastructure here, we cannot get them the shells they need so that we don't have to give them these weapons?
That's a really good point, Garrett. It's a huge wake-up call because clearly in this war that has a front line, that has artillery battles, small arms are necessary, ammunition's necessary. And for whatever reason, the drawdown of stockpiles of those kinds of weapons from NATO countries, as well as the capacity to produce those things and get them off the production lines, that is not keeping pace with the Ukrainians, what the Ukrainians need. They also had a grueling battle in Bakhmut over the course of the winter where a lot of munitions were used. And so this is a stopgap measure. I don't think anybody would think that cluster munitions are a long-term solution to this challenge of ammunition shortages. There's going to have to be a concerted effort that I'm sure will be discussed in Vilnius to get Ukraine more of those types of munitions and figure out ways to produce them faster.
And as we look at live picture of Air Force One emerging from behind an air stair in Lithuania, Michael, I'll come to you. There's also some drama here coming up at this summit around NATO membership, with the allies debating whether to bring Sweden into the alliance soon. They would like to announce it this trip if Turkey and Hungary will go along with that. And the questions about how and when Ukraine could potentially be asked to join. How do you see these issues being sorted out at this summit or left unsettled?
Yeah, the goal for a summit like this is to project total unity, especially in a situation now where NATO is essentially in a kind of proxy war with Russia. And so what the leaders of these NATO nations, and particularly President Biden, would love the storyline to be is absolute unity, standing shoulder to shoulder, complete support for Ukraine, no cracks in the alliance. They're not getting that. I mean, on the war effort itself, yes, there's a pretty strong consensus about what we're doing, although you're also seeing some debate within the NATO alliance about the wisdom of using these cluster munitions. Several countries are not happy about it, although they're generally muting their criticism. It's not causing a public uproar. And then on those two issues you mentioned, I don't see a resolution coming on the Sweden question. I mean, it is possible that President Biden and Mr. Erdogan will pull a rabbit out of the hat at this summit. Erdogan will say, fine, Sweden can come in, but there's a lot that has to be done. Erdogan is making new demands. He's now talking about Turkey's membership in the European Union, which just opens this brand new door that was not at issue before. I just don't see that happening. You also have the issue of whether the U.S. will sell F-16 fighter jets to Turkey, which will require members of Congress to kind of bite their tongues. I don't see that being sorted out. And then on NATO membership for Ukraine, that's not going to happen. There will be some kind of new NATO statement of policy about how they're going to approach this longer-term question. But my understanding is they're literally still sorting it out. I mean, I think phone calls are being made from Air Force One and from President Biden's traveling delegation to try to figure out where people are ready to land. But essentially, it's going to be, I think, largely rhetorical assurances to reaffirm the idea that NATO welcomes Ukraine. They might say some things to the effect of, we're going to try to fast track it, lower the bar a little bit, but it's not going to be the kind of breakthrough that Ukraine wants. And I think that's one reason we're not going to see President Zelensky. His absence will be conspicuous at this summit because he's not happy about that.
Yeah, the president's made clear he doesn't want to, open a new alliance, add Ukraine into NATO while they're in the middle of this war that would draw the rest of NATO in right away. Ben, I want to get back to the Russian side of this for a second here, and this new development we heard about overnight from the Kremlin, with the spokesperson there saying that the Wagner rebellion leader Evgeny Prigozhin met with President Putin 5 days after standing down. He was supposed to be in Belarus. Putin's been calling him a traitor. My questions to you are, one, do you think this meeting actually happened, and where do you think Prigozhin is right now? What is going on there?
Well, by all appearances, it seems like this happened, and Prigozhin certainly doesn't seem to be in Belarus where he was supposed to go under this deal. I think if all this is true, right, if Prigozhin, after Putin went on national television and told all the Russian people that he's a traitor and essentially belongs in prison, if after all that, Prigozhin not only goes free, but he's having this kind of discussion with Putin. He's able to move inside of Russia. What it tells me is how much Vladimir Putin feels like he needs Prigozhin. If he didn't, Prigozhin would be gone by now. And I think what Wagner's done is it's made itself somewhat indispensable to what has been a tenuous Russian war effort. They have hardened fighters who've been in mercenary wars in different parts of the world, and they have this kind of cannon fodder that they've recruited from Russian prisons. Clearly, Putin wants that force to remain a part of Russia's military. They want it, I think the Russian military certainly wants that under Russia's uniform military command. Prigozhin hasn't wanted that. So that's the message I take from this. Putin has been weakened by this whole episode. He has not backed up his rhetoric about Prigozhin at the height of the mutiny, and he's trying to figure out a way to keep Wagner in the fight.